We now have Christalla Jamil, who'll be talking to us about disrupting the leadership trajectory. Welcome to the stage, Christalla. And
Hi, good morning.
over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so funnily enough, it was only a week ago that we presented at our Global Unconference for Women Ed on a very similar topic. So it's a joy and a real privilege to have been asked to speak today. And actually, it's been a while since I've connected with Hannah. So I thought I too, like Naveed, would share a bit of my journey. Unlike Naveed, what really, I don't think it shocks me anymore. I think I'm hearing it so often that at school, people are told that, you're not going to go to university. In our profession as teachers, as senior leaders, as head teachers, people are told they don't fit the part because they don't look the part. I haven't had those experiences. Actually, I feel that in order to escalate, I think I've been actually extremely privileged and have managed to go from being a class teacher to my interim position at the moment of CEO. Now, don't get me wrong, I haven't not had barriers and obstacles to overcome, but my obstacles are dissimilar, and I'm beginning to see how my privilege can help people that don't have the same experiences. So being a part of Women Ed and being a part of Women Ed England, we looked at a variety of literature that helps us as leaders. And we're recently reading The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, and came up with our 5 functions of leadership. So our first one is her joy and defining social coded expectations. As a Women Ed group of leaders, we constantly ask ourselves, are we free to lead? What are the expectations for women within particular societies, but also within our own? What are the barriers or indeed expectations that prevent women from leading their way? And things like Naveed alluded to what he was wearing, climate, that, he's in Sheffield and he should be used to the heat. Who defines how we should look, how we should wear, what we should wear, what our hair needs to look like? Who defines what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? And I think the expectations predominantly that we encounter, that I've encountered, are around gender roles. And they're quite openly based on gender stereotypes instead of being based on natural or perhaps inherent gender differences. But women show great parity in taking jobs that were previously regarded to be male-dominated. And by being 10% braver, we're starting to disrupt the leadership trajectory. Women in leadership in education have so much to celebrate. We don't often fit into male-coded structures, but we've started to work together. And I use the term harmonizing because when you work in a harmony, it means you complement coexisting structures in a pleasing way that not only benefits yourself, but benefits everybody equally. And I think the disruption that we want to bring today is going to change work hand in hand and empower others. We empower, we bring about change, we amplify voices. Though our journeys may differ, and those shared this morning, I can see they do differ. Each step of our journey defines who we are and who we want to become. And unless we unite, and unless we acknowledge that there's so much work ahead of us, we're going to be stuck with what we've got. Looking at our strength, well, I think we don't challenge by accepting status quo. We actually challenge by acknowledging that there is an injustice, by acknowledging that we are vulnerable, that vulnerability is not failure. Indeed, our own vulnerabilities are things that have enabled us to succeed. My own vulnerabilities enabled me to reach out to Hannah, to become a part of her I Am Remarkable group, to speak at events such as today, to join Heads Up. So for me, my vulnerability has actually been a platform to enable strength, to enable others to create perhaps a women-sized opportunity that fits all women. It shows a collective strength. It magnifies ourselves. We can be who we want to be. We can be the people that we want our students to look at and aspire to become. And then we're not content. Are we content with what we've achieved? No, we're not. We recognise that in order to bring about change, we need action. We need action for women of colour, for women of the LGBT plus community, for those with disabilities, for those who are young, who are old, who are going through the menopause. We need change, we need to be heard. And we're going to be relentless in our mission here, so that it is a lasting impact. We have particular ways of leading that are sustainable to our manner, that are comfortable for us, for our style of leadership. But how do we do that on a larger platform? How do we give back to our community? How are we going to ensure that women who are committed to the same cause are continuing to make this impact by removing the barriers that are there? And this is reflected in our schools. This needs to be, Naveed said, I think it was, I wrote down, in Redbridge, where all the head teachers are white, and yet the population, the communities they serve aren't. How do we disrupt that narrative? How do we treat people with generosity, with kindness and collaboration, but network for the betterment of our students? How do we review policies in place, not just for today, but for future generations? And though I don't have the answers completely, entirely today, I'm leaving you with questions that we should be considering as a group of people. You all know who this is. It's Amanda Gorman, and she was actively chosen to recite a poem at Joe Biden's inauguration. My buddy Claire Price said her favourite quote from Amanda was, "When a skinny black girl descends from slaves, from a black single mother, and can dream of becoming a president, only to find herself reciting for one." But for me, it's the hill that Amanda speaks about that really aligns with our fight today. It's the struggle to climb both socially and politically, how far we still have to go before we reach the top of that hill. Our call today is to unite in disruption. We want to be seen. We need to be heard. We want to leave education and the opportunities it presents for future leaders in a better place than we find it today. We need to find the light in this never-ending shade. We need to acknowledge that as privileged people, because privilege does exist, we need to welcome vulnerability, and that could be our own too. We need to rethink what we're doing, to ask, is what we're doing enough? We need to work together to achieve more. Yes, we've made a start, but we've got such a long way to go. We need to enable our schools, our communities to reflect what we preach, what we believe in. And I think the disruption has just begun, but it needs to continue. So my question to you is, how can we help each other? How can you help yourself? How can we help others where the door has been opened to us? That's it from me.
And congratulations on being made interim CEO and smashing through that next layer of the leadership hierarchy. I've not seen you since you've taken on that role.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, I know, sweetheart. There's a couple of things I want to probe here. And let's start with the idea of embracing vulnerability. And Brene Brown talks about courageous vulnerability. What does that mean? What does that look like? Because it gets talked about a lot, but can you give perhaps some examples of where you've done that in the workplace or in your leadership?
100%. On a personal level, just applying for the interim role, all the syndromes possible, imposter syndrome, all the isms that are there. And instead of reflecting on my strengths, I don't think it's as a woman, I think it's as a leader or education, we start to reflect on our what we don't have. So, when applying for a job, instead of looking at that list and thinking, oh, these are my strengths, it's okay not to know everything, because nobody knows everything. It's okay to compliment your team. It's okay with the areas, with the skills that you don't have. But for that moment, I just focused on what I didn't have that prevented me. And of course, I called on a few colleagues, a few friends, and they did empower me to have that courage to apply. And actually, in my application, I wasn't afraid to say, these are my strengths and this is what I can do, but also to say, these are the opportunities where you can help me to grow into the role. And I think by sharing, I haven't been able to listen to today in its entirety because I've been at my parents'. My dad's been a bit unwell of late. But Naveed, it just struck a nerve, all the things he was saying where, stereotypically, we're putting not a glass ceiling, but a concrete ceiling on people. We're making perceptions from ignorance. And that's where I think it's great that, we have these platforms to share this. And how do I do that with the wider community? Well, I tell them it's okay for them to be themselves. I tell them it's okay not to know everything. And then we have obviously a very influential coaching circle through the Women Ed community. But I see it, in my own trust, and I look around and, I've got great head teachers and almost all are women, and we're all white. So it's just never ending. And I think we need to look at how we're recruiting. What are we doing to attract a diverse range of leaders here? And I'm not doing enough. So, when Naveed said he doesn't have the answer, it's not that I have the answer, but I think collectively, there's a power there. Collectively, if I share what my struggles are, you're going to come up with something, or someone that knows someone. So I think, this is how we need to embrace vulnerability as a strength. And actually, my failure has given me rise to this platform that I'm now in receipt of, which is a very privileged position indeed. And I need to use that privilege sensibly.
Thank you for articulating that. And like when you were talking, and I love the reframe of going from the 5 dysfunctions to the 5 functions, because that deficit mindset, what I'm hearing you saying there is that we've all got a deficit mindset. We've been conditioned. The system's got a deficit mindset, as Naveed articulated. In that I Am Remarkable workshop you came to, the idea that when we look at an advert, women see that they can do 7 out of 10 things, because they can't do 3 out of 10 things, they don't apply, whereas a man will see what they can do. There is a reprogramming there, isn't there, for us to do? But I liked that reframe about actually what makes a functional team. What are the things we want to try and break? So your first questions was, are we free to lead? What are some of the things that have inhibited you or handcuffed you in your journey to not bring your authentic self to the leadership table?
I think initially, I entered education very late in life. I started in my late 30s. And I think a lack of experience was the initial obstacle. And then, of course, my attraction is to perhaps disadvantaged areas, schools that need a bit of love and attention. And then HMI was my obstacle, because I wanted to do things that were perceived to be right in HMI's eyes. And it wasn't until I had the crown of success by being good and, a couple of outstanding areas. And I made sure that I kept saying that, because that gave me license to lead. But actually, it's by meeting you, being affiliated with, Women Ed, meeting Alison Peacock, Dame Alison Peacock at the time, who was leading, beyond levels. Levels were taken away. People in primary schools were panicking. We didn't realise the freedoms taking those shackles off of us would actually allow us. So I think experience really has been the biggest barrier that I felt I needed to know everything in order to achieve. And each time I come across an obstacle that doesn't sit with my core values, doesn't sit with me morally, and a big chunk of my life where I had to just get up and walk away.
I know.
I think I'm starting to understand that my freedom comes from my strength and from my courage to know that that's not good enough. Actually, sometimes you can't fight it. You have to walk away.
Yeah, it's that knowing what to say yes to and knowing what to say no to, isn't it? And sometimes we're saying no to ourselves when we're saying yes to somebody else, and that can be a real compromise. One of the phrases you used has really resonated with the audience around this idea of uniting in disruption. Can you just leave us with your final thought about what was the call to action to the audience around that idea?
Well, do you know, I've been told in the past that I bring conflict, but I look at conflict as being healthy. I look at, questioning things. If I'm surrounded by people who are yes people and agree with me, then I'm not going to be successful, and it's going to really impact negatively on the communities that we serve. So disruption means having the freedom to be you. However you perceive that, you are making the right choices. No job is worth your health. And if you're not given that platform to disrupt, if you're not given the opportunity to be heard, and you need to be seen at the same time, you need to go, because they're not worth you. So I think disruption means having the freedom to lead in whichever way you feel is the best way for the communities you serve, without forgetting that it's got to be the best way for you, because you cannot put aside your core values. You cannot stop believing what you believe in. And you shouldn't be changed to form or fit into a mold that just isn't you. Just be you and be free.
I love that, Christalla. Thank you for squeezing us into your hectic personal professional schedule. It's lovely to see you. Go and enjoy your time with your parents.